Conservative new media viewers and political fans all around the world, what's up? It's me, John D. Villarreal, a four-time national champion super genius and the political expert, and I am joined by Paulette Villarreal. We have a very, very important and special video for you here today. This is the ultimate analysis / summary of the Obama / Trump / Russia allegations. It's part of the Ask a Super Genius series. Now, before we get started, please check all the disclaimers, number one. Number two, everything we're saying is all our personal opinion only, based upon the news and allegations and reports that we've seen in our personal opinion, and all for entertainment purposes only. We're not alleging any facts or casting any aspersions. Please check all the disclaimers. We're going to say that again. There's a lot of information in here. So we're doing the best to react to it and try to summarize this for people out there that may be seeing little parts here and there. The next part that I want to talk about is that I'm going to have lots and lots of citations down in the video description. I couldn't put them all in my presentation. I'll have some PowerPoint slides that I'm going to put in here. I couldn't put them all in there. I put a few in there, but I'm going to have much more in the description below. Last but not least, you have to stay with all this. This is it's not a super short video. It's not going to be a super long video. But we're going to try to cover a lot of ground very rapidly, so it's going to be very densely packed with information, so you really have to stay with it. You may have to rewind it, you may have to replay it again. We're going to try to move as quickly as possible. You have to stay with all of it to get everything, because this is kind of, for lack of a better word, a sort of unified theory analysis, if you will, of everything that's going on and why. And with that, I'm going to dive in. My format here is I'm going to kind of bang out a slide, get Paul's reaction, move on. 13 slides in total, and then we'll talk about at the end. So let's go right to it. The point we're trying to say is what may have happened, what are the logical conclusions, and if true, which alleged quote-unquote scandal is worse, meaning the Trump associate, Trump campaign, Russia ties, or this now new thing that President Trump tweeted about and on his Twitter about allegations about the Obama administration tapping his phones during the election cycle. So let's get into that. The first thing I want to do is I want to do a grand overview. The grand overview is this: America is founded with a constitution that guarantees certain freedoms and protections of its citizens from the government, as well as the peaceful transition of power by way of elections. The Constitution specifies in part how those elections are to take place. Now, obviously, the Constitution covers a lot of other things, enumerating powers, everything like that, but these are key parts of it, right? And it's so important. The Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, right to assemble, free speech, everything like that. The promise of the Constitution is that anyone meeting the minimum requirements in the Constitution can be elected President of the United States, as opposed to ruled by a dictator, only a member of a royal family, only selected by a single ruling party or military coup, etc., etc. America for so long has held a unique place in the world, and a very special place. And the way that we do things, in my opinion, absolutely has to be protected. The Constitution also guarantees that citizens rule the government and not vice versa. Very important. Now, some of this seems so basic, but we have to set the table. We've got to set the table and the foundation to analyze all this type of stuff. Donald Trump was elected on November 8th, 2016 as the 45th President of the United States by 306 electoral votes. That's what's specified in the Constitution. If President Trump and or his associates were surveilled by the then sitting Obama administration government, that raises, in my opinion, some very serious questions which we will explore. Paul, do you have any reaction to that overview?
I agree with you. We have to follow an orderly process of transition of power in the United States as laid out by the Constitution, and that's extremely serious, and that can't be taken over by some faction or some group, no matter what they feel.
Okay, now, let's get into this next slide. Why was the alleged Trump-Russia, Trump associates connection probe or surveillance initiated, and who or whom initiated it? To me, this is such a key question. You get lost in the weeds, Paul, and there's leaks, and there's MSM talking and all this and reported, and a phone call, and did they say this, that, whatever. I want to know basics. I want to get right back to the beginning. I want to follow the trail, if you will, okay? In my opinion, these are the most important questions, right? Why? Any surveillance by a sitting government of private citizens, particularly political opponents, raises the most serious questions, concerns, and potential threats to democracy / the constitutional republic. We actually have a constitutional republic. I can't stress this enough, folks. I cannot stress this enough. I'm not trying to amp it up for any kind of, I'm serious right now, okay? I mean, think about this. We have to know why this was initiated. What were the grounds? And we're going to get into other examples of things that happened before, and Chris is talking about smoke. We'll talk about smoke. We'll talk about all that type of stuff. There has to be, in my opinion, a very, 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 very serious reason with serious evidence to do this, because this looks, people, the Democrats talking about, Jeff Sessions recused himself and appearance of impropriety. This looks, in my opinion, prima facie, this looks so bad, barring tremendous evidence for reasons to do it. It looks so bad, Paul. I just don't know. Again, unless you have huge evidence as to why you initiated this probe, huge cost to do so, if it exists, then that's a big deal. Okay, so I want to know if this probe of the surveillance of the Trump campaign, Trump associate, Trump connection, and again, I don't know, because I'm not privy to this information, whatever, so we're guessing as to what the scope of it is. We'll get into that later. Again, we're doing our best here to sort of make approximations, so we have to lump everything together, right? Why was it initiated? Why was it initiated? What was the credible evidence to warrant this investigation? That's what I want to know. I don't care if you're the biggest liberal and you hate Trump, everything like that. You need to be concerned about this, okay? These are things that Snowden has talked about, and Assange has talked about, other people have talked about the privacy, the zone of privacy shrinking, about surveillance increasing and stuff like that. Are you comfortable with that? This is a serious matter. What if the shoe was on there? Could you imagine, Paul? Let me just pause this for a second before I get to the rest of the slide. Could you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? And Bush did this to Obama, or somehow Trump did this to Clinton. Could you even imagine what would be said?
It would be devastating. This would be probably the biggest scandal that ever happened. You cannot, if this isn't done or wasn't done or hasn't been done in a just way, then you have somebody using the full powers of the government against the political opponent.
And again,
that's just...
It's crazy. Again, if it happened, and again, check all the disclaimers, we don't know. We don't know if it happened. But we're going off of what President Trump said. We're going off of reports out there. We're going off of allegations out there. And this is why we're doing this video. We're all trying to make sense of this, okay? So if this happened, I want to know who initiated it, okay? I want to know who initiated it. And I also want to know how big and how long, how wide and how extensive was the scope of the investigation. Did it just cover Trump, or did it cover all of Trump's family? Did it cover anyone who worked for Trump worldwide? Did it cover anyone who spoke or visited, Trump or Trump Tower? Was A.G. Sessions, I think I saw something, Paul, potentially, was A.G. Sessions surveilled in his Senate office when he was still a senator? How long did this go on? And is it still ongoing? He is a sitting president. What is going on here? Okay? So here's the thing. If this happened, and again, big if, but if it happened, and there's lots of reports out, that's why do you think we're talking about all this type of stuff? There's lots of reports out there. Trump just put something out there. So we're going to take that and assume, for the purpose of this video, that there's at least a question there. Who ordered, requested, or initiated such investigation, and who signed off on it, Paul? Reaction to that?
Yeah, that's what we need the answers we need to get, and it doesn't matter what the verb in question is, whether it's ordered or requested or approved. We need to know how this went up the chain of command, and who knew about it, and when did they know about it, and so forth.
Right. We're not getting into word games. We're not getting into semantics. We're not doing the little wordsmithing, stuff like that. It's not about what the meaning of is or anything like that. Bottom line is, how did it start? Who signed off on it? Who knew about it? Where did it initiate? Why is it ongoing? What was the rationale for doing it? Now, let's get into this. Next slide. If surveillance of Trump/Trump associates was done, how long did it go on? Why did it not stop if they found nothing? Many reports even today say that there is no evidence of wrongdoing by Trump associates, Trump campaign, etc. So if no evidence was found of wrongdoing, no matter who ordered it, why not knock down the rumors of wrongdoing? How many months now have we had, Paul, week after week of Sunday shows of Russia, this and that, and Sessions and Flynn, and people have to resign? And I mean, how long has this been going on, Paul?
It's a great question, and one thing I can say is that after Donald Trump took office, and I have no idea if this would be maybe tied in with the investigation or surveillance based on other matters about Russia, but we know that phone calls that President Trump had with world leaders have been leaked. Is that part of this surveillance? How is this getting out? Why is it getting out? What is going on?
There's tremendous.
It continues.
Something's continuing, and there's tremendous questions, in my opinion. Now, here's a key point. And I don't know if I've seen anyone touch on this yet. Not that we see everything. One has to assume, in my opinion, that particularly within the months of leaks and media reports of all this stuff, right? That if Trump and Trump associates were surveilled, no matter who ordered it, that either President Obama, Obama's White House team, and or Obama's Department of Justice would have known the results of such investigation and surveillance. So in other words, where are these transcripts of phone calls coming from between Flynn and this and that? There's stuff that's out there, these leaks, these media reports, that somehow it's coming up. So here's what I want to know. If this stuff, again, if this thing happened, right, I think, in my opinion, that you have to assume that somewhere along the line, no matter who ordered or how it started, somewhere along the line, that wouldn't you think, in your opinion, that President Obama or Obama's Department of Justice or someone would have known about the results of it? So if they didn't know, right, because we saw these statements, Paul, today about, from President Obama's some former spokespersons. We saw some former Obama administration officials saying stuff about cardinal rules and different things. Again, if it happened, and if they didn't know, that to me seems outrageous. Possibly a dereliction of duty. So if there's this surveillance of Trump associates, Trump campaign going on, and President Obama, Obama White House, Obama DOJ, or top people don't know that that's going on, that seems kind of, it's hard for me to believe. And if they did know that's going on, does that increase the likelihood of rogue agents potentially in the government? Are some people just doing this on their own? I don't know. And if they found something big, why haven't we heard about it? I mean, all kinds of stuff's leaking, right? It was all. I mean, we've seen crazy amounts of leaks. If they found something big, why haven't we heard about it? So if they did not find anything, that's the next step. Then why haven't they said that there's nothing to find there? Why haven't they come out and said, "Oh, there's nothing to find there"? Why haven't we seen that? Why haven't there been, former Attorney General Lynch or President Obama or someone saying, "You know what? I don't think there's anything there. You know what? Donald Trump's legitimate. You know what? I don't think this is something, anything like this." Paul, have we seen much of that? Maybe I missed it.
I don't think that we have, and the two things that we have seen, the two accusations that we have seen related to this was General Flynn didn't tell Mike Pence the truth, and Senator Sessions may have said something misleading to Congress. But those were things found within the investigation. They're not pertinent to the investigation because there were no nefarious things found between Flynn and the Russians, it looks like. And there were no nefarious things found between Sessions and the Russians. So these are things, it's like finding things after you cast out a net. They just happen to come into the net, but they're not what you were looking for.
Right. So basically, there was nothing that was gained. If there was an investigation, there seems to be nothing gained from the investigation. But maybe somehow, some way, they tripped someone up during that investigation in the explanations or the non-explanation or whatever it is. You know, this is what some people are theorizing as the perjury trap. Or these kinds of things, trying to keep people on the record, trying to get them under oath. Maybe they'll say something wrong. That's a theory. I'm not saying I'm putting that out there. But what Paul says, I think, is a very important point, which is nothing has come in terms of from this investigation, if it happened, in terms of what this whole media investigation, stuff like that, of potential wrongdoing or ties, with the Russian ties, stuff like that. Let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next slide because there's so much to cover here, and we're talking about everything. Please, well, believe me. Let's talk about this next slide. A sample of what some people are saying. But this is a sample of some people saying no evidence of wrongdoing, in my opinion, in regards to Trump/Russia connections. Quote: "What I've," and this is a quote. These are paraphrases of quotes. Maybe I got it a little bit wrong. I'm going to put the links and stuff down there in the description. I've tried to cite everything as well as possible here. What I've been told by many folks is there's nothing there. Intelligence Committee Chair Congressman Nunes. Source: Portland Press Herald. There's the article there. I have no hard evidence of collusion. Senator Chris Coons on Fox News Sunday Today. That's Senator Chris Coons, Democrat of Delaware. I've seen no evidence of collusion. Senator Tom Cotton, Fox News Sunday Today. Quote: FBI finds nothing illicit in Michael Flynn's calls with Russian ambassador. That's a headline from the Chicago Tribune. That's President Obama's hometown newspaper there. The FBI has not found any evidence of wrongdoing or illicit ties to the Russian government, U.S. official says. Washington Post. Okay, that's back in January the 23rd. No evidence of collusion between Trump and no evidence of collusion, between Trump and the Russians. That's ex-Obama Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. That was today on Meet the Press. I mean, Paul, we're having so many people here, and I'm sure there's more that have stated on the record, on media shows, in articles, that there is no evidence of wrongdoing between the Trump campaign, Trump associates with collusion with the Russians to affect the election. Go ahead and comment on that.
Look, it's exactly right, which is to say that this investigation is all about, was there anything untoward between Trump and the Russians? And as far as that scope goes, so that we know of, there has been absolutely nothing shown. Again, General Flynn did not resign because of he did something bad with the Russians. He resigned because he said something to Mike Pence that wasn't true. Similar with Senator Sessions. There wasn't any problem with his interaction with the Russians as far as we know. It was he misremembered something when talking to the Senate committee. So like I said, but as far as Team Trump and the Russians, right now there is zero that shows up that we know of as far as something condemning.
And again, I'm speaking fast and we're moving fast because there's so much information. We're trying to get this up as fast as possible, but I've spent hours on this because in my opinion, there's this little shell game going on and this media gotcha. And I'll give them credit. The Young Turks had this thing on there, and maybe I'll find a link to it about the sort of framework or blueprint. I'm going to get it wrong or something like that for these quote unquote scandals, and how it always blows up on the Democrats, and how it's just the silliness, in my opinion, is what I think they're saying of this whole thing. So we're trying to move fast on this because I want the average person to get their hands around this and be able to do this. So we're trying to lay out the blueprint for it right here, and we have lots of great information. It's so action-packed. Let's get on to the next slide. Is this a fishing expedition, quote unquote, on Trump? If no evidence of wrongdoing, why not end the probe or calls for a probe and exonerate? This is America. This isn't a Salem witch trial, okay? We don't blindly accuse people and then conduct an extensive investigation and see what we can find and open up everything and look under stuff and then, maybe we find something. No. What we do is we conduct a limited investigation based upon serious, significant material evidence that there actually was wrongdoing or crime committed, And then if we find that there's not, then we move on and we exonerate if nothing is found. And so far from what I've heard, Paul, nothing has been found. So if we assume that Trump did nothing wrong, why the continuing calls for resignation from Trump officials or calls for recusal? Why the continuing calls for investigation to see what we will find, because it's so serious, stuff like that? We haven't found anything. Okay, media's been at this for months. We have leaks for months and stuff like that. Further, whatever the reason for investigation of Trump, the Russian connection and collusion, if nothing is found so far, isn't it incumbent upon Obama or former Obama administration, people to state clearly and repeatedly in the media that there's nothing there, and that the calls for investigation of Trump at this point should stop? Whatever happened to this respect for the office, Paul, this collegiality? The letter that allegedly Obama wrote to Trump. What is going on here?
Look, in my personal opinion, this is only my opinion, this has the feel of a fishing expedition. It has the feel of something like searching for a perjury trap. In other words, you don't have anything material about the initial investigation, and so you then try to look for small technicalities and blow them up. And what I mean by that is, okay, General Flynn supposedly told Mike Pence something that was not completely true, and as Senator Sessions said something that may have been misleading, but we know in the last several days there have been reports that Senator McCaskill said she never met with the Russian ambassador. That turned out to be untrue, and something similar with Representative Pelosi. So, I mean, are they also people who are hiding something, or is it just possible that people have so many meetings and so many appointments, they don't remember every single thing? What I feel is that if there is no merit to the initial charges of collaboration with the Russians, then everything else is essentially meaningless.
And the thing is, from what I've heard, and I didn't watch the whole Senate testimony, what I heard is that the thing that generated all this stuff with AG Sessions was a question from Senator Franken that seemed to be pretty rambling and stuff like that, that seemed to be focused upon this quote-unquote dossier on Trump that I heard was totally fake anyway, or at least had substantially fake stuff in it, and that he was responding somehow to that, and campaign stuff like that. But the thing of it is this: let's put that aside first. So that's one thing, and let's put that aside for a second. So I've seen things I believe were well, I don't want to get too deep into that because I have to see the reports, and I don't want to get too lost into it. And I'm trying to be as exact as possible. So I don't want to have to refresh my memory right now. We're moving forward. The point is this, okay? They're talking about meeting a Russian ambassador. OMG. He's an ambassador. His job is to meet with foreign dignitaries and stuff like that. That's a huge part of his job. How many ambassadors are there in Washington, D.C.? How many? I mean, this dude's, a senator meeting with an ambassador? Stop the presses. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously kidding me right now? What do you think our ambassadors are doing? They meet with people. They meet with government officials. That's what they do. That's what they do. That's called diplomacy. This is insanity, dude. And one of these things was like at a Heritage Foundation event that was, it's insane. Look, let's move on. I want to get to this next slide. That's what I'm saying. What they want to do is they want to get you in the weeds and get you on little technicalities, little word games, and try to hype things up and heat it up. And I think that's what one of the Young Turks were saying. You got to use your brain here. You got to zoom out. We can get into the weeds, but we got to zoom out too. We got to see the forest of the trees. You want to talk smoke? Let's talk about smoke. Okay, Crystal Liza writes this thing, or maybe it's a tweet or some smoke. I don't know. And I got no problem with Crystal. I disagree with a lot of things that he does, but you know what I mean. I think he's okay dude. Never met him, anything like that. But I mean, look, Chris. Let's talk about smoke. Okay. Number one, AP phone records subpoenaed by Obama DOJ for 20 of their reporters. James Rosen of Fox News surveilled by Obama DOJ. IRS during Obama administration alleged conservative targeting scandal, right? EPA during Obama administration alleged targeting of conservative groups. And I'm not making these claims. I'm saying there's reports out there, there's allegations out there, right? Benghazi attack video explanation by Obama administration. right? Susan Wright, she went on those shows and there was things that were said. I don't know. I mean, what happened there, right? Alleged widespread NSA surveillance of Americans during Obama administration practice ended after media reports. Obama administration Secretary Clinton email scandal and evolving explanations, in my opinion. Obama administration AG Lynch's meeting with President Clinton on airport tarmac, etc., etc., etc. Paul, if we want to talk smoke, we can talk smoke.
There's plenty of smoke to talk about, and another piece of smoke that kind of goes back to the last slide is supposedly the Russian ambassador in question, I believe his name was Kisillik, apparently went to the Obama White House 22 times, and including 4 times in the last year. And I believe that the meeting that Senator Sessions, now Attorney General Sessions, had with Kisillik by himself, one-on-one, was supposedly, I believe, set up by the Obama State Department. So it wasn't even Senator Sessions' own volition, apparently. There's tons of smoke going on here. There have been all these things that you're mentioning that raises questions about the Obama administration and surveillance of people and judgment and spin in terms of things as well as regards Benghazi and supposedly the video. That is smoke, as Chris Cillizza would say.
Now, let's do a little timeline of Democrat, in my opinion, claims about Trump election, right? Number 1, Trump during the election warns of a rigged system and talks about draining the swamp in D.C. Number 2, statement by Clinton in the media that we must, and Trump must, in my opinion, accept the results of the opinion, basically no matter what, in my opinion. Trump couldn't win, Trump wins. FBI Director Comey. So then the Democrat claim was FBI Director Comey influenced the election. Comey didn't indict Hillary over the email scandal. And there's some people, that were calling for that, right? Then it was Russia hacked the election. No evidence found. Then there was resistance to calls for investigation of possible voter fraud by non-citizens to cast vote. Evidence found of some in multiple states. Then there was a demand for the recount. We need a recount. Only 3 states only in 3 states that Hillary lost. Trump actually picks up votes after the recount. Then it was the Electoral College to be abolished because Hillary won the popular vote, Trump not legit. And let me pause right here. These may not be exactly chronological order, but they're in a rough chronological order. Some happen simultaneously. I may get the order a little bit wrong, but you basically get the gist of what I'm saying here. Then there was a push, Paul, to switch the electors and media interviewing the elector defectors, right? Trump wins the Electoral College, and Clinton actually loses more electoral votes than Trump with these little defectors or whatever. Then it was House should not approve Trump electors. Trump certified by the House. Then there was calls for Trump's impeachment before he was even inaugurated. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Are you serious? Paul, if that doesn't tip the hand, I don't know what does.
I agree with that. I think there have been continuing efforts to delegitimize Trump's election and to delegitimize Trump's presidency in general. And as you stated, there are already people calling for impeachment. And it makes you wonder, based on what? What do you know that we don't know? Because all I've heard so far is there is no tangible evidence of collusion between Team Trump and the Russians. So what are you impeaching him on? Is it the perjury trap impeachment? Or is this the fishing expedition impeachment? You really don't know, but it has the feel of you have to pass the bill before you can know what's in it. Yeah,
it's like, is this fancy and what it is? And let's go on. Then there were violent anti-Trump protests at and after the inauguration. How many Dems have condemned that? What has President Obama said about it? Has he condemned the violence? Then there were calls from the media and Dems for widespread Trump administration resignation and more Russia ties investigations with no evidence of wrongdoing yet presented. And then there's widespread leaks about Trump administration and media breathlessly covering them, and that's been going on for months. That's kind of an ongoing thing. And then, as we were doing this whole nomination and, confirmation process, at one point I think I saw a report that there was hundreds of EPA, former and current employees urging the Senate not to confirm Secretary Pruitt. I mean, do we see a pattern here? when you add all this up, is it making sense to you now? I mean, the media loves to pigeonhole you and play this little shell game, but when you put it all together, is it getting a little clearer? Paul, what do you think about that?
What I think about this is I think it's very clear what is happening. I think the different steps have been clear, and it just feels like, honestly, this is a personal insult to every voter in the United States, particularly every voter who voted for President Trump. He is a legitimate president. He got the most Republican electoral votes since 1988. And it feels like there's a group of people that just want to just plan and execute a coup, and they don't care about democracy, and they don't care about the Constitution, and it feels like they don't care about the voters or anything else.
Well, Trump won in states that the Republicans haven't won in decades. Trump did better in certain demographics, better than Republicans have in decades. Trump's done all kinds of different things. And we're going to talk about some of the things that you talked about here. Let's talk about right now, this next slide. Let's talk about the facts that we now know. Trump is the 45th president of the United States and was legitimately elected. That's what we know right now. Unless you can show me some evidence down the road, but what we know right now, that's what's up. Number two, there's possibly illegal leaks against Trump that keep happening at an alarming rate. Number three, media and Dems keep asking for widespread investigation into Trump associates, resignations, and even impeachment without any evidence of wrongdoing suggested. Not suggested, yet presented. There's a lot of things suggested, but there's no wrongdoing. There's no evidence of wrongdoing yet presented. Number four, the Obama administration went to the FISA court twice. Now, we don't know who, we don't know how it initiated, but the reports are that they went to the FISA court twice, right? That's the court that's the secret court, that's the court that meets in secret that would approve such surveillance, wiretapping, whatever type of stuff. So the reports are that they went to the FISA court twice to seek authority to surveil people connected to the Trump campaign. At this time, we don't know who, we don't know how widespread, but here's the thing, they were turned down the first time, but they went back again in October. And apparently it was approved then. So, that, Paul, is a massive question and a huge thing out there. And then I'll turn it over to you in 1 second. The last part of that is that Trump claims yesterday via Twitter that the Obama administration, quote, tapping my phones, is on his Twitter, and I took two different tweets, put them together. Obama administration tapping my phones, ... during election process. Your reaction, Paul?
My reaction is outrage. Again, we do not live in a police state. This is not acceptable, and there better be, to me, this is the true scandal. The scandal is not Trump and the Russians, because we've seen so far that there's no evidence to substantiate any wrongdoing there. The true scandal is, why were you surveilling a private citizen during the election who is of the other political party? That makes me nuts, and I want answers.
Okay, so that's what we need to know. It's going to be, Trump's made the claim. We need to know if this happened or not. I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. We're going off of reports. We're going off of the statement on Twitter from the President of the United States sitting right now. So, in my opinion, you have to give that huge weight. Now, let's talk about what we know right now. The next of it, part two, the next slide. Obama expanded the National Security Agency, the NSA, powers at the very end of his presidency, right before Trump got in there. And a report says Obama now wants, quote, to oust, and again, it's a paraphrasing quote, might be getting it wrong. Please check the link in the video description so you can check yourself and check the source. I'm going to tell you the source here in a second. To oust Trump from the presidency by either forcing his resignation or through his impeachment. That was from the dailymail.com on March the 1st, 2017. Wow. Think about that. If that's true, Paul, that's a bombshell.
That's a bombshell. Look, I remember I read that article, and I believe that the source was named as a friend of the Obama family. So if this is actually their thinking, again, if that's true, then you have a guilty verdict before even a trial. They're just going to try to impeach him and get him to resign based on what?
And
What are
again,
you talking about?
who does this? What about the will of the people? What about what about the people that just elected Donald Trump? What about the election process? I mean, how many? I mean, we have a constitutional amendment that says the president can only serve 2 terms. I mean, what does that say about, if this is true? I mean, there's so many questions and answers about Obama potentially trying to control who's president or overthrow. I mean, I don't even know. This raises so many different questions, in my opinion. This is super, super serious if this is true.
Yeah,
super
it is
serious.
Extremely serious, and it goes directly in the face of the will of the people who elected Donald Trump.
Now, let's talk about the next point. So I want to hear your comments on that. Let's talk about that. I can't stress that strong enough, because that is critical. Okay. Next point. Media, in my opinion, may have quote unquote colluded with the Clinton campaign. Debate questions before the debate. Review of articles before they came out. Many connected to the Clinton Foundation. 96% of the media, according to or in one study, donate money to Clinton. Okay? Clinton campaign. The DNC quote unquote deck primary process seems to have been stacked, quote unquote, in my opinion, against Bernie Sanders. Super delegates, debate schedule, Debbie Washington Schultz resigns, etc. Finally, a super high percentage of government workers in a report donated money to the Clinton campaign. Around 95% of workers in report donated to Clinton 2016 campaign. I mean, Paul, when you add all that up, it doesn't look like Donald Trump may have gotten a fair shake.
It doesn't. I mean, the first thing is, do 95% of the media have to recuse themselves of covering the Donald Trump allegations?
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love that.
It really is, it's troubling, and it does, from the outside looking in, it has the feel of a collaborative effort to kind of hurt Trump with the American people. And that's how it feels like watching it.
Well, and we've seen a lot. There's so much stuff that came out with the whole WikiLeaks things and the Podesta emails and the Assange statement and stuff like that. There's just a lot of stuff in there that, from what I've seen, has not been denied or disputed. And so that's significantly or seriously, and that is, I mean, people need to really take stock of that in terms of, and I'm not advocating or applauding or anything like that. The way this information was gathered and stuff like that, or even speculating or opining on that. But I'm saying, if it's out there and if it's true, then what do you make of that? And I think that's been discussed a lot. But I think that's very, very important. Now, let's turn the page to this and let's start winding this down, because we want to hear from you guys. If true, which alleged scandal is worse? The quote-unquote Trump scandal at its worst allegation, in my opinion, if you push this to the maximum, in my opinion, it's that somehow Trump and or Trump associates somehow worked with Russia to unfairly win the election. Now, that's very, very bad if that happened. But how exactly did they do that? Trump was a private citizen. He had little power as a private citizen in these matters. He doesn't have a national security team. He doesn't have, all kinds of agents and technology and expertise to go do all this type of stuff. Why would Russia need to partner him? Russia, has the FSB. Putin was formally involved in all kinds. They have all kinds of agents and technology and operatives and methods and stuff like that. Why do they need to partner with Donald J. Trump to affect the election if that's what they want to do? If they want to do some kind of crazy espionage or something like that, Paul, why would they partner with Trump? And before I turn it over, you can't say that Trump is a bumbler, quote unquote, some kind of different spin on that, with no government foreign policy experience on one hand, and an international spy master, computer wizard on the other hand. How many tech companies and government employees were supporting Secretary Clinton? And again, you had the Obama administration, which he was a part of, that was still in power, and yet Trump beat them all with this hacking, including with Russia. I mean, give me a break, Paul.
Look, there's 3 things for me just that come to my mind as we wrap up here. Number 1, if this election was supposedly hacked, quote unquote, by people who leaked out information from emails, then was the 2008 election hacked when Sarah Palin's emails were hacked?
Wow.
That's number 1. Number 2, this Trump and the Russians? Because we already have answers on that. We already have people saying that nothing is there. Question is, was Donald Trump as a private citizen surveilled, and who did that, and why did they do that? And I want to know the answer to that. And number three is, if you are the Russians and you have all the intelligence and all of the polls telling you that Donald Trump is going to lose, why would you put any effort or weight behind him when he was supposed to lose? I mean, how can you, if this is, why would you bet on a loser?
Interesting questions. Let's talk about the next slide here. And let's talk about the other alleged scandal, all right? If true, which alleged scandal is worse? Part two. The Obama administration damn quote-unquote scandal at its worst allegation. If it's true, the implication is that the power of the federal government and intelligence agencies potentially were used to spy on a private citizen and political opponent and people connected to him to find quote-unquote dirt and defeat him, and essentially to criminalize politics. In addition, after Trump won, if the worst allegations are true, the implication is that they won't accept Trump's win and are actively working to unfairly / maybe illicitly sabotage him, some still in the government potentially, and thus subverting democracy and the will of people. This is what some people out there are saying is a so-called deep state indoor quiet coup, Paul. Your reaction on that?
I mean, I think it's a pretty easy choice between which one would be more damaging or more of an important scandal if the two exist. I mean, look, and like you said, going back to the smoke and where there's smoke thing, we know what supposedly happened with the federal government, the IRS, and conservative groups. Unfortunately, we might have seen this movie before.
Now, let's wrap it all up, and I want to hear from you guys. In conclusion, next slide. The actions against Trump administration are sour grapes and distractions at best, in my opinion, and could possibly be treason or sedition or anti-democratic at worst, at the maximum, if the worst is true. So somewhere in between there is where it lies. I can't tell you where it lies because we're still finding out so much of this stuff like that. But I don't know if this is just fantasy land and wishing and hoping, or just being upset or whatever, or if there is some kind of something worse than that. I don't know, but I think that's where we're somewhere in that zone is where we're at. If true, as Paul said, the alleged Obama administration scandal is far worse in my opinion. The vast majority of the mainstream media is covering this very unfairly, in my opinion. A lot of Dems are acting very extreme, in my opinion. Calls for mass resignation of Trump administration officials, calls for impeachment and stuff like that. Next point, the Obama administration intel agencies have a lot of explaining to do, in my opinion, regarding alleged possible Trump and or Trump associates / campaign surveillance. We need to find out about that, and knowing, as having observed Donald Trump for decades, Paul, I have to believe that we're going to hear a lot more about this. And now he has, he is the president, so he has the means to be able to try to get some investigations and some different things going here. The next point is, unless something massive, real, and substantial comes out extremely soon, the Trump-Russia investigation needs to be over, in my opinion. But the questions and investigations into why Trump / Trump associates / Trump campaigns were possibly spied on could just be beginning and could be extremely serious. And obviously, Paul, if Trump accused the Obama administration of surveilling Trump associates, Trump campaign unfairly without proof, then Trump is wrong, and we need to see apologies and stuff like and more. What do you think of all that conclusion, and what are your final thoughts, Paul?
I think those are good conclusions, and my final thoughts are, we've heard a lot about Russia. There has been absolutely nothing substantive to come out, and that includes General Flynn, that includes Attorney General Sessions, in my opinion, based on what he has said. And as you said, it was within the context of the question, which I believe had to do with him as an official surrogate of the campaign, not as a senator. And there has been months of investigations going on, I believe, in the FBI and I guess in the Senate Intelligence Committee as well. Maybe the DOJ, I don't know. Nothing has come to light of any substance. I agree with you that pretty soon this is going to need to get wrapped up, And there does need to be investigations, in my opinion, of the surveillance of current President Donald Trump, and let's see what comes out of that.
Yeah, and I have to tell the viewers out there that I apologize to him for laughing and smiling at it. It has nothing to do with what Paul was saying. I've got a pregnant wife over there who is just sort of demanding my attention right now, so please bear with me on that. Okay, look, here's the deal. I heard enough of what you said there, Paul, and I agree with a lot of what you said there. What I want to say is this. Donald Trump was elected president of the United States, okay? And that's the bottom line. The people who lost, don't be sore losers, okay? We have to stop, this politics of personal destruction, to borrow a phrase. We got to stop criminalizing the politics. We got to let Donald Trump have his chance to be president. You oppose his policies, oppose his policies. You want to, peacefully protest, peacefully protest. You want to do all that type of stuff. But, this calls for special prosecutors, investigations without any evidence, impeachment. This craziness has to stop. And I think the American people in this country deserves the best out of all of us. Out of the mainstream media, out of the government, out of Republicans and Democrats. That's what I have to say about that. What do you have to say about that? Give me the comments below. Please subscribe. Please rate this video up. Please check out all the links and citations, and please check out all of the disclaimers. Thanks so much for watching. I'm John D. Villarreal, the 4-time national champion, the political expert, and the super genius. That is Paul at Villarreal. You're watching Conservative New Media. We'll see you next time.